Welcome to September. Today we're making a Dicladispa, also known as the Rockrose prickly pear beetle. And it is not called prickly as a way of being cheeky. It is an actual ode to its genuine appearance, something that will make itself apparent later on in the video. So right now I'm doing my usual tinfoil base, cover it with clay, yada yada yada. One interesting difference with this beetle amongst other beetles is that it's very flat, as you can see here. So I didn't need much tinfoil, and the inside is actually a bit more hollow than my other bugs usually are. I promise, however, that the lack of tinfoil on the inside does nothing to the structure of the bug, because it's really the clay on the outside that forms the armor of what we're doing here. So that aside, now that I've connected these two segments, I'm just going to make some cosmetic changes using my Sculpey thing to just differentiate even more between the two segments. And instead of making a third separate ball for the face, I'm just going to carve it out directly from there. And speaking of the face, I'm going to make my eyes by using my usual method of just flattening them down, so that way it looks like something that's really built into the face. I'm going to now make my little partition for the wings, and maybe one of these days I'll make the wings open on one of my bugs. That would be a nice challenge, but that's definitely something for the future, not for today. Moving on to the antenna, spoiler alert, I'm actually going to cut down on the eyes, but we can come back to that later in the video. For the mouth, took a couple tries, only because there were a couple different things I wanted to do for the mouth. I wanted to give texture, but it didn't work out. And there I thought the mouthpiece looked too much like a fang, and this isn't a vampire, so scrap that. I tried to take the clay and then chip away at it like I like to do, but then I ended up having to flatten it out again and scrape it again. That didn't seem to add as much oomph as I wanted because the Dicladispa has like a very prominent mouthpiece. So I simply combined it, as you can see. So I made two mouthpieces on top of the middle scrapey parts. And I think that came out well. And here, as you can see, I cut out the eyes to make room for the beads. That's what I cut them out for. So, awful faux pas on my part. I have managed to forget to do my dots. And I know what you're thinking, Sydney, the dots are literally right there. I tried to add those in after it baked, so it only made the slightest surface level dent, and it did not work out. And as I mentioned in my Lapis beetle, adding the dots, as tedious as it looks, is one of my favorite parts, so I can't even believe that I forgot it in the first place. So what I did was I just added a very thin layer of clay, and I simply just added the dots. And you can see the difference there. It's much deeper, much more impact. Once I glaze it, those surface level dots wouldn't have made it. So I had to go over it. And then I just popped it back in the oven for like 5 minutes max. And it worked out nicely. Onto the legs. I simply just mapped them out as I usually do, poke the hole, but this time I did something a little different to account for the fact that the bug is so flat. I marked my sharp tool, so that way I knew exactly how far to put it in so that it wouldn't come out on the other side. And then everything from there is just same as usual. I stick it in, but if you notice that the feet part are a little bit thinner than I usually do, I don't know if you pay that close attention to the legs of my bugs, but I can tell you that they're a little thinner. Why? Because the Dicladispa has little claws, and I didn't want to take away from the already sharp and pointy motif, so I had to include these little claws, which were actually hard as fuck to make. You see these rusty pliers? I had to use brute strength to retrieve this. This was harder than a Smith's fan when they see a dandelion on the side of the road. If my bug creations were an actual corporation, this would be definitely a HIPAA violation. But I got there eventually. And you see this shit, you think the hard part's over, but no. I did that and boop, had to pop it off and make it a little shorter, because these were hard, and then I had to nestle the two wires together so that there wouldn't be too much of a disparity between them. So as you can see, I had to pull it off and start over and use the thing and scrape it off, and this and that and that and that. But I got there eventually, like I always do, even if it was, you know, a bit of a challenge. But you know me, I don't shy away from the challenge. And then from there, I do the legs. if I may say so myself. With every bug and every video, I get just a little bit better with these hot glue legs. And I think the Dicladispa, the legs came out really good. They look janky there. They look janky as fuck there. But I think they do come out good in the end. And I think the legs add character. They look a little sinewy because of the hot glue. And I think that adds character. I quite like that. And onto the titular spines, which pose another intoxicating challenge for me. One that I could not knock, even if I tried, because that's what makes the Dicladispa. You would think that these spines would give way to a Machiavellian personality, something that's worthy of this workplace accident that's going to happen to me, or even the sort of harmless arrogance of a childhood bully. But no, the Dicladispa tips its hat towards irony, because it's actually quite small, 5 millimeters, and it's docile, harmless, and it lives its life, lives and dies in the comfort of flowers. But onto the spines themselves though, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit! I tried to make them with the glue, wasn't working. I tried to make them with the wires, it wasn't working. The wires could have worked, but it wasn't what I was going for. It was a little too stiff. It didn't ease into the way that the Dicladispa spines ease into. It kind of looks like I just kind of stuck something into a base, and I didn't like that. So you see here I have a stroke of genius and a stroke of patience, because it turns out if you let the hot glue dry for just a couple seconds so that it's a little less malleable, and you use it to pull it, I use one of the wires to just pull it out and then cut it. Boom. That's what works. That's what gives it the perfect spine look. And you know, it may have taken about 3 or 4 or 5 attempts, but once I got there, I got there. Because look at that. It looks magnificent. Or at least to me it does. So then of course I say, fuck this shit. I rip it out. And then I just go onwards making the spines. I go down in a nice little row. Or should I say column? It goes down in a nice little column. And then I try to do a little diagonal, so kind of weaves, so that the spines kind of weave in and out of each other. And I also try to make them different heights, if you will. Something that I don't know if I regret. It's one of those things that's up in the air. It could go either way. The ones around the border, though, I made smaller because on the actual bug itself, the border is smaller. I mean, those spines around the border are smaller, so. Now onto the paint job, and it's magnificent, it's simple, yet it's marvelous, it's awe-inspiring, but in a regular, everyday way. Like when you're at a restaurant, and you've been saving up to go there, and you see the waiter coming with your food. Oh, that piece broke off, but I don't mind, because I got to glue back on, it makes it more sturdy. But anyways, it's magnificent, I love it, it's simple, and it's just, starts with a base of reddish orange. You could call it red, you could call it orange. But I think it's just reddish orange. And as I said in my past videos, I'm going to stick by it as well. I'm going to start blushing, adding a bit more shadows and highlights and yada yada yada, as you can see here. So every little line, if you will, I'm going to add a little bit of depth there. I take this little neutral brown shade and I just tuck it in, you know, just tuck it into those little areas where there might be a natural shadow. And man, does it elevate this bug. And I'm going to continue doing this for every single bug from here on out, because it came out magnificently. So magnificent, and you will see it in the legs. Jinx, which is what I just got to in the video. The legs come out great, because you see right by the joints, I add just that little gradient effect. And it comes out magnificent. And on top, I dust just a little bit of gold. I dry brush just a little bit of gold to give it a little oomph. And I put it on its little toesies too, just to give it a little oomph. And I think it comes out great. It's so simple and it's so effective. And I previously overlooked it and I will never overlook it ever again. And now on to the best part of the paint job. I added a little bit of metallic towards the base. The spines are black, but in one of the reference pictures I saw, the light hit it in just a way that it almost looked metallic. And I took that idea and I ran with it. And that's what we did with this bug. And I think it is just... And on to the antennas, doing my favorite technique, or one of my favorite techniques. Simply making the antenna by adding these beads and then tipping it off with a little bit of hot glue that I then paint black so that it's almost like a fake bead to top it off and keep the others in place, keep them in line. Random side note here, since we're almost at the end of the video anyway. By the way, thank you so much for watching this far. Love you guys so much. If you made it this far, I know I usually say, sometimes if I remember, to leave me a name suggestion in the comments for the bug, but I don't think there's a name better than Dicladispa, I really do. A strong alternate contender though, for the Rockrose prickly leaf beetle would be Rockrose. Why? Rockrose. Rockrose. Prickly leaf, prickly pear. Shout out to all my pear. Come on guys, don't make me do all the work. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to. See you for the next one. Bye!